Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Larry Leigon. He's an author, corporate trainer, and an entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Hi, AJ. It's great to be with you.
Wonderful. You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Larry. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll be talking about mastering non-resistant entrepreneurship, and we'll also talk about a few other things that people will learn from. But before we turn about these things, let's learn a bit about your journey, Larry, so that people can benefit from there. Your journey itself is a message for a lot of people. You have started 4 companies, 2 of which sold in 20 plus countries in the world. Black belt in Aikido, means so many things
That's
that
right.
are there to understand from your journey itself. Right.
What would you like to know? Shall I just start talking, or do you want to?
Yes.
By all means.
You can. Yes, it's all yours. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, I have started 4 companies from a napkin idea, literally drawing it out on a napkin, and then ending up with 2 of them selling in over 22 countries internationally, 2 of them selling nationally in the United States. And one of them was a service company. We were doing corporate training for Hewlett Packard, which is one of the 50 biggest companies in the world. And those are for managers, trying to teach managers about non-resistance in management instead of trying to dominate and bully people, which is a big problem in corporations. The traditional way of doing it, at least in America, the traditional way of doing it is try to dominate the people and crush them. And that doesn't really work that well. So the other one was a product company. We were able to apply NASA space technology, in this case, millipore filters, to the wine industry, which had never been done before. And in doing that, we were able to separate out flavors from the alcohol. So when you make wine, normally whatever flavor you get is bound to the alcohol through the molecules, through the molecular structure. But we were able to separate it out using these space filters so that we got flavors on one side and alcohol on the other. So inadvertently, what we did was create whole new aromas, whole new smells, whole new flavors that had never existed before. So we had 2 applications. One of them, we ended up making non-alcoholic wine by taking all the wine out. And we were the only non-alcoholic wine in history to win a gold medal against wines with alcohol. And this was at a major fair in Los Angeles. The other thing was we were able to extract those smells, those aromas, and you could concentrate those into flavorings for food. So just in the same way you would use spices, you would be able to use these kinds of flavors. So in doing that, what I got from those companies was how much the company is tied to the entrepreneur, to the person who is running it. The business ends up being a mirror image of you. And so your strengths become the business strengths. Your weaknesses become the business weaknesses. And when I was training at Hewlett Packard, we used a personality system that there's thousands of them, and you can use different kinds of ways to classify people's personalities. This had 4 different kinds. But a lot of the problems in business, and entrepreneurs particularly, is a communications problem. People are speaking one way with one set of values to people who are speaking another way with a different set of values. So for instance, if you're a data person, you're all into spreadsheets and numbers and measuring things. If you start talking to a relationship person, their language doesn't even mean the same thing. Even when you're using the same words, you mean something different with them, right?
Right.
And so how are you going to compensate for that? Well, one of the ways you have to compensate is by non-resistance. You have to allow them to be who they are. And you have to broaden your own awareness. I don't think people realize that an entrepreneurial company can be one of the greatest self-development tools in the world. It's amazing because it will bring out everything in you. If you thought you had any secrets, you won't have any secrets anymore once you start working one of these companies, because everyone will know, everyone will see what you do. They'll all interpret it differently, but they'll all see what you do. And if you start off like we did from a napkin, for a year or two, we had 500% growth a year. Well, that's incredible. Who can deal with 500% growth? I'd hire somebody on the beginning of the month, and 30 days later, their job would be obsolete. Whatever they were great at that I hired them for was no longer what I needed them for. So we had to teach them in some way to talk to each other, and instead of arguing, to be able to come together and create coalitions, create, as an Aikido black belt, I mean, one of my very core values is non-resistance and non-violence. And so most businesses are run the way a bully treats a kid in a schoolyard. It's a military model. And if you're just thinking about the business, that's fine. I mean, if you go to business school, what are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you accounts receivable, accounts payable, inventory, cash turnovers, bank, gross profits, marketing channels, social media, not social media, physical distribution, all those kinds of things. That's great. But you have to have those. But that's form. That's the form of the company. That's not what drives the company. What drives the company is you and your values and how aware you are of yourself and your effect on others. So one of the tests that we did all over the world with people was a statistically validated test that showed how aware you were of how other people thought of you. That turns out to be the key to being a great manager. You have to have some sense of what they actually think about you, whether they're actually telling you or not. And you have to have some way to speak to them in a way that's authoritative. I mean, you're in charge, you get to tell them what to do, but not demeaning and not trying to dominate them, but rather trying to work with them. So if you can integrate your own personal awareness with the business, then the business will increase your own personal awareness as you go along. As a business goes from 500% to 100% to 50% to 3%, it requires different things from you. What I did that was great at 500% was terrible at 100% growth. So I had to be able to grow too, just like the business. And the growth that needs to come is from awareness. So one of the traditional yogic ways of developing awareness is a really simple exercise. If you ask most spiritual people, what does spiritual principles have to do with business? They'll say nothing. Doesn't work. But they do, because I worked them for 4 different companies. What you do is, most spiritual traditions will tell you the most important exercise that you can do for yourself is to observe your breathing. So you will sit and observe your breath. That's good. In my case, I can't really do that. I start screwing up my breathing. But you could observe your heartbeat. You could observe your pulse. You could just become aware and notice what it is. I found the easiest way for people who are not into spiritual development, who are just there to make the money, to make the business go, is to tell them the little finger technique. So the little finger technique is really simple. It actually comes from Sadhguru, Yogi Vasudev. I'm probably not pronouncing his name right, but in southern India, where instead of your heartbeat or your breath, you just think about your little finger. Now, while you're thinking about and concentrating and putting your attention on your little finger, you have to go on with what you're doing, just like I'm going on with talking to you. So if I can maintain my awareness of my little finger or my knee or my neck or anything else, sounds behind me, but in this case, if I can maintain my awareness of the little finger, then I start to develop a conscious awareness that almost no one in business has. Without that conscious awareness, then you're always at the mercy of your own weaknesses and your own strengths, your own bias, your own values. And your own values are not always what motivates somebody. So as you develop your own awareness, you'll become more aware of the things you have to be a great entrepreneur. So you have to be able to read people. You have to be able to read business environments and business situations. And you can't see them just through the prism of your own prejudice or your own bias. That will work for a while. But if you do that forever, the company will explode at some point or implode at some point. It won't be able to grow anymore because you're not absorbing what is there. When we started, there was no market for non-alcoholic wines. We had to create that on the grocery store shelves, on the distributors, in the consumer's mind, and everything. There was no market for flavors that no one had ever smelled before. You had to create all of that stuff. And as awareness grew, then what the business needed from me was that I'd be more aware of the reactions that the business was getting, just like I need to be aware of the reactions that I'm getting if I'm leading the company, if I'm driving the company.
Right, Larry. Well explained. Now, in terms of non-resistance, entrepreneurship, leadership, why do they get down to that if they know that it's not going to serve their purpose and that business is not military rule? Ultimately, it's about talking about dealing with your employees and marketing your product to
Yeah.
the general public. So why do they do that?
Why do they do the dominance or why do they do the nonviolence?
Do the dominance.
Yeah. Dominance is, now I don't know about businesses I know about businesses in America and Europe. I don't know about businesses in South America or India or China. I don't know how they're run. I do know a lot more about businesses in Japan because I've had a Japanese partner and we've done a lot there. But in America, the whole thing is to show you're tough. It's all a macho culture. So what they're looking for is what Americans think a real man is. Now, that's not what a real man is at all, of course. But what Americans think a real man is anybody who can give and receive pain. The more pain you can give, the more pain you can receive, the tougher you seem to be. We've got politicians who are obsessed with being tough guys all the time. And so we've got business people who are the same way. They're taught in business school that you have to analyze everything and you have to dominate. If you're going to run some company, you got to tell people what to do and make them do it. And then you get some side advice about trying to motivate them and trying to get them to buy into a vision. But that's not the way it works. If you want somebody to do something, if you're getting resistance in business to what you're trying to do, if your employees or your business partners are giving you resistance, that's exactly what Aikido deals with. How to overcome resistance without resisting it more. If you oppose resistance in business or if you're being attacked in Aikido or any other martial art, if you oppose the resistance, it makes the resistance stronger. And apparently, American business schools haven't figured that out. What they know is what they can analyze, what they can put on a spreadsheet, and all that stuff's important. I'm not saying that's not important. Stock prices, all of that, important. But it's not what makes the company go. I spent years with different accountants, and they would tell me, oh, you need to do this, or oh, you need to do that, because the numbers show this, or the numbers show that. Well, that really doesn't work if you're leading in an entrepreneurial company. If you're in a mature company, you're growing at 0.5%, 1% a year, you basically just want to reproduce what you've done before, then none of what I'm saying really applies. You just do what you've done. But if you're an entrepreneurial company, you're trying to make a mark on the world, you're trying to get that business to exist that never existed before, then you have to find a way to motivate people without dominating, because they'll just burn out and they'll also resist you more. I taught change management in Hewlett Packard Associated Companies, one of the 50 largest companies in the world, in over 80 countries in the world, in multiple languages. And change management is not about saying, okay, today we're going to do A and B and C, and if you don't do it, I'm going to fire you, or I'm going to dock you, or I'm going to otherwise punish you and make you work overwork. It's about telling people what they want to do in the first place, which is like Aikido, where you mirror the attacker. Then you extend the attacker's energy. In this case, if you're getting people that are resisting you, you want to mirror them first. You want to establish rapport. You want them to feel that you understand what they want, and you can say it back to them. Then you can start to extend them and redirect them, just like Aikido, into a different direction. But most leaders want to just come in like it was a fight and knock somebody out, like it was a military battle, and you overcome with your artillery or with your infantry or whatever you're using. You overcome the enemy. But your employees really shouldn't be the enemy. And neither should your partners, or neither should your stakeholders of any kind, including the customers in the company. So in order to apply non-resistance, it takes skill. It took me about 6 or 7 years to become a black belt. In some martial arts, you can become a black belt in 6 or 8 weeks, because you're really learning to kick and punch and block. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's good to be able to kick and punch and block if you're in a fight. But that's not the way Aikido works. Aikido works by extending the energy of the attacker, by taking him in the direction that he was already going, and get his balance by taking it a little further than he intended to go. And then you can redirect them back into a different place. And that way you're able to take violence and neutralize it. If you respond to violence, and I'm using that in a bigger way, I'm including resistance of people not liking you or not liking what you're doing or any of that stuff. If you've got employees that are resisting what you're doing, if you just try to overcome their resistance by being more resistant than they are, by being stronger than they are, by being tougher than they are, they're just going to get stronger and tougher back in your face. And I've spent this all over the world with employees. They need to feel that you're not giving them the resistance, that you're actually helping them to get what they want to get. And so that requires a lot more personal development on the part of the entrepreneur. Entrepreneur can't read that. If he can't see that, if he can't read the market changes, then you're going to lose. It's not going to work.
Right, Larry. So you talk about non-violence. How does that come into the business? Means, if you talk to any Indian about non-violence, means it's a part of our culture. Mahatma
Yes.
Gandhi, our father of the nation, he was the one who brought this whole sort of a thing. So I want to understand, that your mention of non-violence in your context.
Yes. I have tremendous admiration for Gandhi. He's one of my personal heroes. He's one of the 3 or 4 people that I admire and try to model as much as possible. Now, in Gandhi's case, I think Americans at least got a poor idea of what he was really doing, because what it looked like was that nonviolence mean you just stood there and got beat on. You got beaten with clubs, or you got shot, or whatever that was. But that's not what he was doing, and that's not what nonviolence is, at least not in the Aikido sense of that. And I don't think it's what Gandhi intended either. Nonviolence is a way to work for agreement with the people, a way to help them get what they want at the same time, so they no longer feel the need to beat on you with sticks or shoot you or herd you into prisons. I mean, he was treated horribly by the British, and he still was able to stay calm. Well, how was he able to do that? How was he able to hold on to his center like that? That takes a lot of personal awareness and a lot of personal development, so that you can look at an enemy. In Aikido, you're supposed to bless the attacker. You're supposed to love the attacker, because the attacker is the one who's in trouble. You're not in trouble. If you're being attacked, the is in trouble because they've broken their connection with the universe.
Absolutely. Right. So, how do you see the present state of entrepreneurship, leadership? Are they moving towards what you talk about, non resistant leadership, non violence, or are they moving towards much more difficult times?
I think at the moment, if I tell the truth, which I always want to do,
Right.
I think they're moving toward more difficult times. Because in our country, now I don't see what's happening as much in other countries. I mean, I see some, I'm not completely ignorant of things happening in other countries, but in our countries, we have a tremendous divide now between people who want to be violent and people who don't want to be violent. People who want to achieve things with violence, people who don't want to achieve things with violence. And I think in business, the way the schools are run, the billionaires who happen to have the money, most of them, not every single one, but Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, the people who have the big money, they tend to want to do it in the most destructive, confrontative way possible. And so that's why I work my classes. I have classes, I have consulting to individuals, and I have consulting to groups. And I work my classes so that I'm hoping that I start a seed. I'm not the only one to start it. Of course, there are lots of other people in the world who've talked about nonviolence and who try to apply nonviolence. But I want to start it in the entrepreneurial world, plant a seed. I can't change the whole world. I can't change anybody. But I can start a seed so that people begin to see there really is an alternative to the traditional way of doing business that still makes money. And in fact, it makes more money. You're not wasting all the money that traditional businesses waste on trying to control people and dominate people. And in the case of most business, I don't know how much your listeners know, but most big corporations have what they call shadow businesses. So they may have 3 different people in different countries doing exactly the same task. And so they're wasting 2 of them in terms of business efficiency. But they never know it. They never realize it because it takes some outside consultant to come in and do a bunch of studies to figure out how much is being repeated within the company. So I would like to start with things like this show. That's why I want to do these podcasts and with hosts like you who know what I'm talking about, who know who Gandhi is. If I'm going and talking in Arkansas here, I'm not sure they would even know who he was. They might know Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther King,
Of course.
he studied Gandhi to get there. So I think the more I can do, the more people who can hear me talk about it. I've given people away. I gave you a Calendly link so people can make an appointment with me and talk with me for free for 30 minutes. And we can talk about their situation. I can do an overview of what their situation is and see whether I can help them or not. But whenever I talk to them, I'm talking to them about ways to develop themselves as well as develop their business so that their business develops alongside of them, and ways they can use nonviolence personally as well as professionally, and the way the business treats its customer, the way the business interacts with its vendors, and the way the business interacts, in our case, in the wine business, with growers, grape growers. Always been very difficult tension between winemakers, say, the production people, and the salespeople. The production people see things one way, and the salespeople see things the opposite way. And so they're always fighting, and you lose a lot of efficiency and you lose a lot of opportunities. So there are ways you can go in, you can teach people, you can live your life that way, which is what I try to do. The best model that you can be is to live your life that way. And you can talk about it, and you can try to get people interested in it. They don't have to learn from me. If they learn from me, that's great. But there's a lot of great people like Gandhi, like Martin Luther King, that you can look at their careers. There's also a lot of other people contemporary now. There are, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 million people training Aikido around the world at the moment. And they're not the only ones. There's some Tai Chi masters are trained that way, who live their life or try to live their life up to those values. So I think if you can light the seed, it's just like being in, I don't know if you've seen, but we have religious revivals, and there'll be giant stadium, like a soccer stadium or football stadium. There might be 30, 40, 50, even 100,000 people in that stadium. And they'll cut all the lights out, and they'll start with one candle, and they'll light that candle in the dark in that giant stadium. And each person lights the candle of the person next to them. This is common in a lot of religious services, but they do this in these giant parks with 100,000 people in them. And pretty soon, that one candle has set the whole entire park in light. And that's what I can try to be. I can try to be that spark. I can't light the entire stadium. I can't you don't have to be enlightened to be living to nonviolence. If we get enlightened entrepreneurs, that'd be great, but you don't have to do that. You just need to be that spark that starts the flame and don't let it go out. I mean, in the United States right now, it's hard because there's so many people that are so upset and are so strongly feeling about violence in the U.S. But that doesn't mean you can't do something. That doesn't mean anytime you interact with them, I don't know how to explain this to people who haven't actually been attacked on the mat or in life. I've been attacked in life too. I was held up over 20 times in my liquor store when I first started selling wine. But you can either make the attacker stronger and angrier, or you can suck that anger and violence out of them by the way you react, by the way you live your life, by the way you are. So your life should be the greatest spark that you have. But in addition to that, of course, I do the consulting and I do the classes. And I'm privileged to be able to talk to people like you who understand what I'm talking about and who have an interest in trying to do things in the world in a different way. The way we're going now, I don't know how long we're going to make it. So we'll find out. That's not my purview to know, but I'd like to make it so human beings evolve instead of devolve.
Right. Well put, Larry. And I like this part about spark. And that is the thing that world needs at the moment. We have had enough of fires in our, in the whole world. We don't
Yes,
need
you're right.
many fires. We just need a good spark. That's it. And something that can ignite many more sparks and really, not only lighten this world, but enlighten this world.
You're right. You're absolutely right, AJ. And that will happen if enough people keep lighting the sparks and stop trying to light fires to burn things down. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. So there is much to learn from you, Larry, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to know more about you, from you, want to get trained by you. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
There's two easy ways. I don't know if your show has my Calendly link. It was in the material we originally did. That's my calendar.
We'll put it down. No problem.
Okay. Well, if they can just make an appointment on my calendar, they can talk to me for free, and we can go over what their situation is and what they're interested in or not. The other way is if they want to just write me, email me. Just email me at larry@larryleigon.com. So it's just Larry at my name, larryleigon.com. And I will get that email directly and I will answer you directly.
Wonderful. Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ. I really appreciate it.